California's insurance crisis is in chaos, now spurring calls for the insurance commissioner to step down over a lack of transparency.
I'm very disappointed in the insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara's lack of being able to be transparent.
He said, you're on your own, basically.
They just weren't really helpful.
Then he's not doing his job, and he should leave.
The state's plan to expand coverage in fire-prone areas is supposed to be implemented in less than 2 months.
And as 7 on Your Side Stephanie Sierra will show you here tonight, tracking down the man in charge is no easy task, Stephanie.
Yes, Dan and Alma, it's been a long time coming. The state's insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, has the most authority to address this crisis, but his latest plan came with criticism. It's filled with loopholes, alleged misrepresentations of his promises. So for months now, we've tried to talk with him, but his office has repeatedly ignored our requests, refusing to answer basic questions. Now tonight, that changed.
I mean, the guy's got the title of insurance commissioner. Isn't he supposed to be doing something about insurance?
Meet Valerie Baldwin. Like millions of Californians, she was dropped by AAA, her insurer of 40 years, then forced to another provider that spiked her premiums.
50% more.
Same story with her neighbor Bob.
60% higher.
And her neighbor Janet.
They canceled me. And meanwhile, the broker put me into the California Fair Plan. Do I have to come up with the money to pay off my mortgage? What will I do?
Despite the fact her garden is well groomed and her Portola Valley property is directly adjacent to a fire station, the 86-year-old's premiums still went up nearly 50%.
Absolutely frightening. And I was just numb with fear.
Fear turned to frustration as both of them tried to get answers from the man elected and granted the legal authority to respond to these situations. California's insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, and his staff.
He said, you're on your own, basically.
It was all on me to do it.
I think that they would try to give us some help. There's been nothing.
Our goal is to help consumers like Valerie, Janet, and Bob. It's why we're called 7 on Your Side.
The irony here is the commissioner has the same message, telling consumers he's on your side, along with promises of transparency.
Hi, this is Michael Fowler at the California Department of Insurance.
I've called repeatedly. We really want to hear his side.
We don't often show you the behind-the-scenes reporting process, but the lack of communication with California's insurance commissioner and his office unfortunately became the story here.
That's not acceptable.
To be fully transparent, for more than 2 months now, 7 on Your Side Investigates has made more than a dozen attempts via phone or email to speak to the commissioner about some of the concerns raised about his insurance reform plan. This affects all of us, but his staff has yet to give us a straight answer and oftentimes don't even respond.
It wasn't until the 6th email attempt over the course of 8 weeks, when we indicated we were doing a story on the matter, that we got a response. And his office told us with some advanced planning, we can look at his availability through the end of the year. So we responded, we are happy to plan ahead, asking repeatedly for his availability. No response. I reached out the next day. The day after that, again and again. 5 more emails asking the same question. Still nothing. After another week, his office told us, when we have an outstanding interview request and the commissioner is not immediately available, we will revisit it periodically as his schedule develops. I believe this is standard practice among most elected offices. We finally heard back from his staff the day our story aired, more than 2 months later.
Why did it take so long to get a hold of you?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea this was the case. We've been, busy traveling the state, so I apologize for that. I wasn't aware.
This is the first time it's been brought to your attention?
Yeah.
I have been very concerned about the way in which the current commissioner has conducted himself in this office.
Congressman John Garamendi was California's first elected insurance commissioner who served for 8 years. He sent a letter to Commissioner Lara last year, signed by dozens of California lawmakers, including 9 from the Bay Area, all calling on Lara to hold insurers accountable by using his authority granted by Proposition 103. That's the state law that protects consumers from unfair insurance practices and rate hikes.
Over the last 3 years, I have observed that this commissioner is not willing to take the hard task and the necessary task to stand up to the insurance industry. Now, if the commissioner is not willing to do that, and there's plenty of signs that he is not, then he's not doing his job, and he should leave.
Do you have a response to that?
I do not.
When Latta was running for re-election in 2022, he had this to say about insurers raising rates.
I'm very kind of sketch about giving them any authority to just haphazardly raise rates without getting anything for the consumer.
Since then, the state's top insurers have raised homeowner rates by at least 30% or more.
You have the option to file legal action against these insurers. Will you do that?
I would file legal action against an insurer that's breaking the law and that is breaking the current regulations that abide by Prop 103. The rates that you've been seeing reflect the risk of where we're living. We've had unprecedented fires since 2017.
Let's go back to 2017.
When we asked years ago for him to be engaged and he just kept pushing it off.
State Senator Brian Daly says he reached out to him years ago for help after the 2017 Tubbs fire and the 2018 Camp Fire, the state's deadliest wildfire.
And he didn't respond. He wouldn't even respond to the calls I was receiving in my office of people who couldn't get insured.
What do you have to say about that?
Wow, that's interesting because we've had several town halls in the senator's district. So that's a surprise for us. I'll make sure I connect with Senator, who's a good friend.
This was a direct request to you from his office, not pertaining to a town hall.
I mean, we get requests all the time, so I don't know who they're filtered through, but I'll make sure to contact the senator myself.
His colleagues in the state legislature, but local city governments like Pasadena are calling on the governor to step in due to Latta's lack of action.
There's been no transparency. The companies are not being held accountable.
Which brings us back to why this all matters. Consumers like Valerie and Janet,
It protects policyholders. I don't think that's true.
who couldn't get answers from the state and ended up signing with an insurer they didn't trust.
This was a fly-by-night organization, and if we live here in the WUI, and if the place is all burned down, they'd hightail it out of town.
Now, Congressman Garamendi raised concern in this letter. The proposal will bring dramatic changes to the commissioner's regulatory power, threatening the ability to create a stable insurance market. But the commissioner has denied that will happen. Coming up next week, we'll have a deeper look into his plan and the changes coming next year. And I'll tell you, there are many of them.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Stephanie.